This lecture will focus on supporting material and oral citations and why they are important. First, with supporting material. There's different types of supporting material. There are examples that people can give, narratives. This is one that a lot of speakers enjoy, as well as your audience, because they revolve around stories. If you decide to do the narrative form, make sure that you have an interesting or entertaining story for your audience. Testimony is how somebody feels or believes about something. Facts, which is extremely important that you have facts to support your presentation, as well as statistics. A lot of times when you give numbers about a particular subject, it will show your audience how grave or how important a situation may be. Credible sources. Your audience will want to know that you've received your information from credible sources. Now, one thing that you have to be careful with in this day of online information, make sure that it's truthful. So you've got to ask yourself several questions. First of all, who posted this information and why? Was there an ulterior motive behind it? You want to make sure that it's from a legitimate source who isn't trying to trick an audience. You need to know if they have a bias. And if so, you need to be aware of what that is, because it can slant a presentation if not all sides are given. It's also important to know the source's qualifications. What makes this person a viable and credible source? If you cannot verify it, then you should not use that source. Where is similar information found? The internet is wonderful for creating sources, and you can know almost instantaneously if there's other information concerning whatever topic that you choose to speak on. You should try to at least find 3 other credible places where this information can be found. That will lend validity to your topic. And also, is this information timely? If it's outdated, there's no use in presenting it. There's different types of sources that you can use for your presentation. One of which is a primary source, and this is where someone can provide immediate firsthand account of something. They were there when it happened. For instance, with 9/11, there were people who were actually there when the Twin Towers came down. They could be primary sources because they actually experienced it. They saw it firsthand. There's also digital collections that many libraries have, which is a wonderful way to get information. There's personal knowledge and experience. Whether you have experienced it yourself or you know of someone who has, you can use that as a source as well. Interviews are wonderful for getting information where you can actually sit down with someone who is an expert on a particular subject and get credible information from them. Surveys are also another way that you can get information as well. Surveys are generally used for research information, but you could use a survey for a presentation if you had time to collect that information. There are secondary sources, and they can provide a commentary about something. It wasn't directly observed, they weren't there. For instance, going back to September the 11th, I wasn't there, but I remember it happening. I saw the Twin Towers go down. So I would not be a primary source, I would be a secondary source. You also can get information from books and newspapers, periodicals, as well as government publications. And all of these are credible places to get information. There's the reference books, such as your encyclopedias, and also there's the internet that has a wealth of information, such as blogs and social news sites. Oral citations. When you're citing sources in your speech, it demonstrates the quality of your research. It lets your audience know that you did your work because you have a source that can back up what you're saying. So that's extremely important. It shows that you have reliable sources because we're in a generation where people want to know if you're telling the truth or if you made it up, and anything that you say can be found very easily. It's important to know what you're talking about and that it is legitimate, because if it isn't, someone will call you out on it. It also helps you to avoid using other people's work as your own, otherwise known as plagiarism, which can get you in a lot of trouble as well as kicked out of the university. So you definitely want to avoid that as well. So someone may have something that's very important that you want to add to your speech. Be sure and credit them for that. Don't use it as your own. It gives you credibility as an ethical person when you do something like that, and your audience will respect you even more because they know that you have done your research and you're accrediting the correct person for whatever statement has been made. Again, it enhances your authority as a credible speaker. And your audience will support you if they believe you. The minute you say something that they don't believe, you will lose your audience and you will never get them back. So it's important that you always come across as a credible presenter. Finally, it does enable the listeners to check your work and to know that you actually did your work and you know what you're talking about. Finally, oral citations. They let your audience know where you got your information from. It has the author, the type of source, the title, description, as well as the date. Whether it was an interview, the date of the interview, or if it's a scholarly article, when that article was published. This helps to establish the source's trustworthiness, and it lets the audience know, again, this is a credible source. I can trust the speaker. You need to qualify your source. A source qualifier is a brief description of the source's qualifications to address a topic. What makes this person an expert, and why should we believe what this person has to say? Also, it's very important that you avoid a mechanical delivery when you're making your presentation.